Hi Heidi, thanks for coming on to the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. We've only recently met, so like I say, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure it's going to be an unbelievable episode with the content and the value you'll be able to give. So, brilliant. How is everything going your end?
Thank you. No pressure. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me because, I'm not very famous or anything. So yeah, it's a privilege to be on, to be honest, and been asked. So yeah, not bad. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, not too bad. Like you say, you're not famous, but who knows, one day you might be. So,
Oh, I hope for good, not for bad.
yeah, I'm sure it'll be for good. So like I say, cheers for coming on. Just introduce yourself then, Heidi. What is it, to tell the listeners who you are and what you're doing.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Heidi. Those that are local, I'm on the South Bank. Those that are not, I always say I'm from Hull when I'm not. So when people go, "Oh, you don't sound like you're from Yorkshire," and I'm like, "Well, not really." So yeah, that's to differentiate that. My full-time job, I work for a well-known homeless charity. I'm a contract manager. I don't know who trusted me with that position, but that's how it is. And I predominantly work on prison contracts. So I manage prison contracts across the whole of Yorkshire and East Midlands. And I specialise in trying to find vulnerable adults leaving prison or on probation accommodation within the area. In my business, my absolute dream would be to work in that sector, but at the moment, it would be a conflict. So I'm kind of focusing on a few different strategies. So I'm doing rent to rents, deal packaging, flips, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm doing a little bit of a mashup really. And because we're northern, all the southerners like northern people for some reason. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Including myself, being southern
Exactly.
myself, yeah.
Are you proper? Oh God, I'm off now.
Am I proper southern? Yeah, I was born in southeast London, so I've lived up here for about 5 years now. So yeah, proper southern, as you might call it. But all my mates back home seem to think my accent's disappearing. Every time they say that, I like to go home for a weekend and get it back. I don't get the whole accent yet. I don't want it. So
Don't have it. Do you know? Let's see if you are proper northern. Have you bought chip spice and taken it out of Hull?
I'm not taking it out, but I've got a pot in my cupboard. It's the best thing ever. So for
Nice.
those of you who don't know what chip spice is, if you ever visit Hull and you buy a portion of chips, it will be the orange flavored stuff on top of your chips, and it's absolutely amazing. Literally, I love it. I never knew what it was, but every time I get a takeaway now, I ask for extra chip spice because it is banging.
Yeah, that's how you know if you're proper northern and from Hull. If you carry chip spice with you.
Yeah.
So
But
that's your test.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason I invited you onto the podcast is you've touched on quite a few sort of important things there. I say important, you're a contract manager in the criminal justice sector, focusing on, rehabilitating or providing accommodation for people who are coming out of prison, whether they decide to be rehabilitated or not, that's up to them. But, um, you know, obviously we had a conversation and it was really interesting to know a bit more about this sector and probably the demand for housing in this sector and the opportunity that might be out there, and hopefully you can share some of that insight or that information with us today, without, like I say, being a conflict of interest with work, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you can tell us about the sector that, well, some of us, especially including myself, that we don't even know.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know it's like a really hidden sort of sector, and even in my company, it's not very well known. It's not very well spoken about because who wants to help a prisoner? Not many people. So I kind of shout it from the rooftops. I'm really passionate about it. I tell everybody, even though I am a property investor and want to be a property investor full time, I still will always be passionate about this subject in this sector. So yeah, as you say, it's not very well known. It's quite frightening. And if you say, would anyone house a sex offender? Would you house an arsonist? Bloody hell no, I wouldn't. But actually, when you realise what goes into housing a person who's leaving prison or on probation or is an entrenched rough sleeper, there's a lot that goes on in the background that nobody ever talks about, because why would they talk about it? So it's interesting for me being a property investor and working in the sector because I'm trying to piece the two things together. So I can see it from the public sector side, I can see it from the private side, and there's a lot of benefits to it that people just really don't know. So there's a lot of hype at the moment around social housing, the care industry, learning disabilities, etc. But again, unless you've worked in probation or within the prison, you won't know or have a bloody clue about that side of it. So I'm hoping to educate people either on this podcast, through networking events. Just come and chat to me. I'm really happy to help. So yeah, there's a lot of schemes out there that offer guaranteed rent, but also if they don't, there's incentives for landlords to go into that sector as well. And it's nationwide. It's not just Yorkshire and Humber. There's a lot of contracts out there really needing accommodation. So yeah, I'm hoping I can sort of educate people on that.
And you say that, so would you say that there's a demand for this type of sector? And it's something that I'm coming up a lot against now. So that, like you said, the social care sector, the social housing sector, depending whether it's, like, say, disabilities, ex-offenders, there's so many different sort of sectors, but this one's probably the least spoken about. Like you say, if someone said to me, and I don't want to discriminate, but you touch on a sex offender and an arsonist, they might be an amazing tenant, but if people find out, there could be risk to your properties, the security of that property. So obviously it's not shouted from the rooftops that they're offenders, but people may end up finding out. So are you able to go into a bit of detail about some schemes or funding or some of the benefits in a bit more detail?
Yeah. So, sorry, coughing all over. So yeah, it's tricky because a lot of the risks are mitigated against. And again, you wouldn't necessarily know that. So for example, some of the sort of not well-known schemes, but the local authorities, so everyone has got a local authority near them, has a pot of money and some schemes or incentives to house entrenched rough sleepers, general rough sleepers, general homeless population, those that are sofa surfing, ex-offenders, basically. And I don't want to bore you too much, but I can go on this for days. If you present to your local authority as homeless, they have to basically carry out an assessment to see if you're a priority need, or if you're not, if they can accommodate you. There's a lot of law, legislation, and other boring bits I can go into detail about. But fundamentally, if they have to accommodate you by law, they have to find you something. And that's where you'll find people are stuck in B&Bs, or families with 7 kids are stuck in B&Bs, or you'll see campaigns at Christmas about, inadequate housing, or someone from London having to move to Birmingham because there's no accommodation. You'll see that within the local authority. They either hold their own stock, a lot of them don't anymore, they've been sold off to other organisations, or there's schemes that can tap into where they can sort of pay guaranteed rent through either universal credit, or not even upfront, but how they can tap into the private sector, basically. So more locally, there's a person at the council who will go and speak to private landlords, go to networking events. One's coming to mind in January to try and sort of generate interest, basically. So a couple of different schemes. If you're a housing association, you may be able to offer guaranteed rent to a private landlord. So the lucrative 5-year fixed term guaranteed rent, no maintenance, no voids, etc. They do exist. You've got to look for a community interest company who has housing benefit exemption rate to tap into that. Again, nationally, go and find out who your providers are in the area. Your local authorities, there's a new scheme for ex-offenders, whereas you can encourage a private landlord not to give the accommodation to the council, but to basically take on these tenants. Now, this is where it's quite tricky because it's not known at all. But basically, you'll get your market rent. You'll get your, I think, 5 weeks deposit up front, depending on your council. And then in addition to that, there's some incentives. Now, every local authority who has access to this funding will have an incentive, whether it's financial, whether it's paying for the accommodation if someone's trashed the place, whether it's extra insurance for those with arson offences. It depends on the council and what they put into that bid, basically. But yeah, there's that out there.
And is this easily found online, or do you have to, obviously you said the councillor, do you have to have that direct relationship and build up there?
Yeah, so basically every local authority should have a housing strategy on their website.
Yeah.
They should do, it should be in date. Not all of them are, disappointingly. I found one the other day that was 5 years out of date. But basically it should have that strategy of who's their client group they want to accommodate, what they're going to do about it and what they need. So it might be refugees, it might be ex-offenders, it might be young adult males, it might be families. Each area is completely different. So they should have a strategy on there about what they need to do. Again, relationships are fundamental, especially in property, but also in the homeless sector. You've got to build relationships up with your local authorities, with the homeless team, with the private rent scheme, and you should have a named person on the housing strategy. But if you don't, just ring up the local authority and say, hiya, this is what I'm looking for. Can you put me in touch with someone? Now, as any public sort of sector, it'll take you bloody ages to get through. You'll never get to the right person. They'll forget about you and it'll take weeks. But if you truly want to make a difference within this sector, persevere and make them relationships, and go out there and see what you can do in your area. And if you need any help, shout out. I'll help you.
Oh, fantastic. And how have you seen it, or, how has it been over the past, couple of years? And I always sort of ask the COVID question. And the reason being is I've actually, I've just remembered I was speaking to someone from the local council, it's usually within the empty homes, because I speak to the lady in the team a lot, but she also mentioned, I think she referred me on to someone, but I was just having a conversation. They were saying how many homeless people at the minute are put up in hotels.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Because of COVID, or during COVID, they had to be put up, and due to the fact that there weren't a lot of properties around, they've been putting up in hotels. And you think how costly that is, compared to standard LHA rates or standard rent.
So prior to COVID, the housing sort of sector was sort of diabolical for homeless people anyway. And then during COVID, the government had the initiative of get everyone in, get them off the streets, basically stop transmission rates. And again, there was a lot of schemes, whereas the hotels were empty fundamentally. And we had a client group that needed accommodating. So there were schemes all around the country to get people off the streets and into hotels. Not for long periods of time. I can't remember the amount of days now, if it was 56 days or something. But basically, it was to get people off the streets into hotels. And as fantastic as that was, when you put a vulnerable adult into a hotel with no support in a pandemic, it's not the best idea. They can't manage it. There was no food, there was no access to food, and it wasn't the best approach. But at least the government had a scheme, get everyone in. So it was like, yes, everyone's not going to be on the streets. Now what we're looking at is that long-term sustainability of getting people off the streets into long-term accommodation. So again, there's contracts out there that can accommodate people for 84 days. So the sort of client journey is, if they're in prison, our teams, so not my business hat, my work hat, our teams would get a referral from probation, would assess the need of those individuals, see where they're best placed to go. Either it's private rent, either it's supported living, somewhere like the YMCA, for example, or this scheme that can accommodate you for 84 days. My personal opinion on that is very bitty. The journey takes too long. There's too many people involved. It's not very streamlined. And my sort of passion is get them into long-term, sustainable and affordable accommodation. Where we're falling short is a lack of private landlords wanting to enter this market because of the risks and how scary it sounds. But what I can tell you is the amount of people and the amount of support that goes on in the background to support these individuals into appropriate accommodation is stuff you've never even heard of. The risk assessments that go on, the assessments that take place, the support that takes place, the mentoring, loads that go on, and you just think, oh, they're going to trash the place. And even my friends who I've spoken in depth about it still go, oh, what if they wreck the house? And I'm like, the risk of them doing it is quite slim because of how much support they've got. So yeah, it's
quite a fascinating one, isn't it? Really, because it's like a chicken and the egg. Unless you take that risk, you don't know whether they're going to trash the place. But at the same time, I understand your values and why you're trying to do it is because people need a fixed address. If they don't have a fixed address, it stops them getting jobs. It can stop them getting future credit. It can stop them. Some people go into prison. They might be in there 10, 15, 20 years, come out, and they completely change their life around. They made one stupid mistake when they were younger and they changed. Now that's, I don't know what percentage of people that is, whether it's 10%, 20%, but there's also people, they're in and out. So for example, it's given the people the opportunity as well, isn't it? giving them the opportunity
Yeah.
to provide them some housing whereby they can turn their life around and potentially, change their whole life.
Well, I always say, I'm a bit blunt, me. I'm a bit too honest, but I always say, if somebody's on the streets at risk of reoffending, what have they got to lose? They may offend again. If you put them in accommodation with support, really help them, they've got something to lose. So it's something to aim for, something to be proud of. It's their own home or their own job or their own, I don't know, whatever. So the risk of reoffending is lower because they've got somewhere stable. And then obviously you can get them a bank account, you can get benefits set up, get them that support. So yeah, it's difficult because, who wants to give them that chance? Unless you can find a golden scheme of guaranteed rent for 5 years.
With any damages covered and all that. But then again, it comes down to the funding available as well. That funding may not be available, but you might have guaranteed rent for 5 years. So some of my tenants have only been in 6 months. So 5 years is fantastic at market rent, isn't it? And I'm assuming once the LHA rates or the market rates go up, then the rent will go up in line with that as well. And being a council or a local authority, they're probably, I'll say honest, probably a lot more aware of what's going on and be more willing to pay.
Yeah, it's this sort of, because the yield, right? So as a property investor, I can see both sides of it. Or the yields are not 20% return on investment, return on cash employed, blah, 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 whatever. Do you know what I mean? All the jargon. And it's not the best yield. But actually, if you take away the messing about of your voids, the maintenance, me leaky tap, do you know what I mean? Just the day-to-day hassle of managing people. Take all that away, it's bloody worth the yield, the lower yield. Of course it is. And it's less hassle and your home's been taken care of. So yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. Sadly, I can't tap into it personally, but for me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So what's the ideal property then? If someone come to you and said, I've got this property, that's exactly what we're looking for. What is it? Or does it vary?
Well, yeah, so it varies. This is what I mean about building relationships up with the appropriate people. So I know of most of the accommodation in Yorkshire because of what I do as a job. So the best accommodation is 1-bed single units. That's like, wow, if you can get hold of them, bloody brilliant. Anyone will take them off you, because predominantly homeless people are young single males, basically, the majority of them, because of the lack of priority need that those people have, unless they've got substantial mental health issues. 1-bed single units anywhere in the country will probably be snapped up. I had someone in London say to me, oh God, I keep getting offered these 1-beds, don't know what to do with them. I was like, what? Take them, give them to the council. Like, what are you doing? What happens generally is people go, oh, I've bought a 6-bed HMO on the worst street in Hull. Do you want it? No, we don't. So you've got to not buy and supply for the market, but figure out what that person needs first. So again, there's people at the local authority who will take anything because they've got to accommodate families and young males and, couples or whatever. So they'll probably take anything off you because, again, it's really tricky to house large families, especially with the refugees coming in as well. Predominantly the large families, so they need quite big accommodation. So like I know Hull need 3-4 bedroom houses. Other schemes, 3 beds are pretty good because, again, with this clientele, you don't want any more than 3 together really, because of the dynamics of the people in the property. But again, it depends on your scheme, depends who you're housing. So I supported someone in Birmingham to say they wanted to do rent-to-rent social housing. And I said, refugees is quite prevalent in the area. Go to your local authority, find out what they need, go find it, basically. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
You're basically sourcing to order then, aren't you? You're basically sourcing to order. Then if you have them conversations first, like you said, building up the relationship and the network internally with the local authority, they will tell you what you need. So if you can go and get it and you want to get into this sector, it's probably worth having that conversation, right?
Yeah, it's easier. So like for Hull, for example, just near the hospital, a 6-bed HMO near the hospital for nurses, bloody brilliant. If you've got a 6-bed HMO there, don't really want prisoners in it. So again, look at your area, look at the housing strategy online, figure out what the priorities are, go make relationships up and go, what are you after? And I'll help you. So, yeah.
It's very, very interesting sector.
Market, really.
It is, yeah, it seems it. And, you know, the social sector, like I said, I have a few people that I've been working with on some properties, so portfolio landlords selling them, and they're primarily being snapped up by social housing providers. You know, I don't get to know the intricacies and the ins and outs or who they're for, but, you know, and I'm getting asked a lot, I need properties with vacant possession. They need to be vacant possession. I guess there's such a demand, or there's such a long list of people that need housing, you know, can't wait 2 months plus for the others to be kicked out.
Yeah, exactly. But like, if I'm not an expert on, like, although I've worked in the learning disability in the care sector many moons ago, a 10-bed all ensuite care home may be sufficient for those with learning disabilities. You don't want 10 ex-prisoners living together unless it's staffed 24 hours a day, potentially.
Yeah,
so yeah,
like being back in prison, wouldn't it? I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, as well, if you're an entrenched rough sleeper or an ex-drug addict, for example, and you're trying to get away from that lifestyle, and you're living with someone who's still in that lifestyle, you're never going to get away from it. So, or you feel that way. So,
yeah, it's taken away the. Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's taken away the temptation, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that's a lot about the synergies between your day job and what you want to achieve in the property world. What made you get into property? Was it purely that?
No, not really. I fell into that by accident, but I love it. So yeah, I don't know how I ended up. I just always wanted to work in a prison, and then I was like, oh, here I am. So property, I've always loved property from even being a child. I actually remember, I don't think I've told anyone this, but I actually remember speaking to my neighbour when I was about 6 going, can I look around your house? And she was like, no, you freak. And I've just always loved property. And then I remember saying to my dad, I'm going to buy loads of houses me when I'm older. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I remember the first one I bought strategically because of where it was. And I've just always had a passion for it. And then I accidentally did a rent to HMO, lived in it, didn't realise what it was at the time. I think my landlord was really creative. And I still kick myself to this day about not doing what I should have done. So basically, I was a student at Lincoln, lived in a HMO. Now I know it was unregulated and illegal. I had no fire doors. It was crap. And I used to basically manage it for her. And then I was like, right, I'm leaving now. I'm done. And she was like, no, stay. You can just take on the whole tenancy on your own and then do what you like with the property. So I was like, all right, cool. And then my husband was going in the forces anyway. So I was like, well, he's leaving. So I'll stay here. Rented out the rest of the bedrooms, did it wrong, put them all on ASTs when I was on an AST. It was 10 years ago, so don't shout at me. Made a lot of money and then bought my first property sort of flip. What I should have done, like an idiot, stay in the bloody property for another 5 years and keep buying HMOs. That's what I should have done. So yeah, I've kind of gone into property, not unconventionally, but yeah.
An accidental investor, I guess, using a creative strategy that you say 10 years ago, it probably wasn't called rent to HMO, rent to bed.
Just imagine if I wrote a book on that. Could have been rich. So,
I know. Just got to find another niche now and write a book about that.
What an idiot. Yeah.
Live and you learn, don't you, I guess? But so yeah, so what did you do after the HMO then? Have you done any property training, or where are you in your sort of current situation now in terms of property investing?
Yeah, so after the HMO, I bought a lovely little 3-bed terrace on a really awful street in Lincoln, and I did it up and I lived in it and I flipped it and I kept it really, and I put a tenant in, and then I released the equity and bought my residential that I'm fully refurbing from top to bottom, and then I ran out of money and I wanted to buy another house, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, this is so slow. How are all these people millionaires? So I found some property training with Progressive that adds, the values stuck with me. I'd recently done property training with another provider, we'll name no names, 3 years ago, and the values were that awful, it just put me off property. So it's taken me a long time to get back into it. And it was only when my friend said, oh, I've done some training with the blah, blah provider, I'm going to be a property investor. And I thought, do you know what? If you can do it, I'm getting my ass kicked and kick my ass again, and I'm going to get on with it. So signed up to some property training, signed up to some mastermind mentoring, signed up to a PPN before doing that. God knows why the hell I did that. And yeah, I've only really been doing it actively and consistently for about 6 months now. So although I've been in property 3 years, I'm a newbie. I'm going to class myself as a newbie, basically.
Yeah, I suppose there's, there's so many strategies out there, so many training courses. I've been on a couple of courses. I had a mentorship. Did I get value in it? Yeah, I did get value in it, but they're all different, aren't they? Like I said, people have different values. People want to achieve different things. So if you are looking to do, I'd say make sure it's specific to your strategy, specific to what you want to do. But yeah, what's your favorite strategy out of them, or what strategy are you doing? So you're flipping, or you flip your old house, took the equity out. Obviously, you got a buy to let then. So you're currently doing this house. Are you flipping this on? Do you think, or are you going to stay there, or do the same, pull your equity, get another buy to let?
So this one is my family home. I'm going to live in it till I die, basically. That's the plan. I know I'll probably move, but don't tell him that. But I've basically done this house up to a real nice spec, so I will keep it. But it's the perfect footprint for an 8-bed HMO, basically. And everyone I've showed the floor plan to has absolutely kicked me and gone, what an idiot. Why didn't you turn it into a HMO? And to be fair, the council wouldn't have allowed it. It's in a conservation area. It's in a nice area opposite a grade 1 listed church. And the hoops I've jumped through to get my extension is unbelievable. So never mind turning it into like an 8-bed HMO. So yeah, my favourite strategy. Don't know if I've got a favourite strategy. I fell into deal packaging. I'm not going to say it's my favourite, because it absolutely isn't. But yeah, probably the looking round old grungy properties and having a vision to make them better is probably what I'm passionate about right now.
I fully agree with you. There's nothing more rewarding than taking a really shit grotty property and, getting it on the market to let at the end, and just seeing the transformation, when the walls are falling down, when the walls are falling through, ceilings are falling down, just being able to, get a good team of builders in. So I use the same builder all the time. A fantastic team. They go in, knock it out, do a fantastic job, and just seeing the end product is such a rewarding feeling. I think it's amazing or surprising how many shit houses are out there. How much stock there is. Probably not so much now. It's just getting them, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is my passion, but I don't know. It must be. I sit on 2 groups with the council because I'm a geek. But so I actually sit on an empty homes group, and I sit on the town plan. So no, everyone's like, oh, you've got to get a copy of your town plan. Bloody hell. I'm actually writing ours with a group of people to shape what Barton's going to look like in the future. And I've learned so much about bloody Section 106 money, developments, what developers have to do, all the hoops have got to jump through. And basically I'm doing that because there's a lot of old empty properties in Barton, and I walk past them every day going, what the heck, why are these empty? They're doing my head in. They're all grade 2 listed buildings. So actually my passion or my interest would be, how can I turn all these crappy empty properties, all these commercial properties, into a stunning place? And then they wonder like why nobody wants to come here for tourism. I'm like, well, do something about this. So hopefully I can do something about it and make a difference locally, because I'm a resident as well, and put all my knowledge, training and passion to shape where I live. So that's kind of a long-winded strategy.
But it's a very interesting one, to say the least. So what else are you doing? So just for the benefit of the listeners, Clubhouse is a huge app. There's many listeners on there. You have your own, I don't even use it. Is it an episode or a show? What do you call it?
Probably a room. I don't know. We'll call it a room.
Call it a room. So yeah, you currently have something going on there as well for, you know, for the people who use Clubhouse a lot. What is it you do? And it might be something that they're interested in.
Yeah, so basically, we'll say I'm a newbie property investor, and I'm very transparent. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety for many years. That alone's a challenge, but when you put that into property investing, round a full-time job, round kids, round my own refurb, round everything else, it's really bloody hard work. And you'll have like 9 lows to 1 high. And when you see people posting in like social media, it's always with a picture of bloody keys, and it drives me mad. And I'm well known for moaning about people with keys. No offense to anyone who's done it, by the way. But they always share the highs. I'm a millionaire. I drive a Porsche. And now I've got 1 million properties. But they never share the lows. So this Clubhouse room is based upon supporting each other. So it's called Wellbeing Wednesday. It's supporting each other in property. Are you having a shitty week? Do you need to speak to someone? And it's basically a platform where me and my pal Varesh talk about how our week's gone, support each other, and then invite people to the stage to sort of share their week as well. So it's kind of fundamentally to help each other in property, discussing the lows, the challenges, yes, and the highs, but also, yeah, getting each other through it.
I guess it's quite important, isn't it? Like I say, it can be extremely stressful at times, and allowing people to get things off their chest in a forum whereby no one's going to be judged, and with people who probably understand what they're going through because it's in a similar industry. You know, they're probably all facing similar challenges, and having people that can give back. So is that the reason why you started it? Obviously because of your own experiences, and you felt that you needed something out there wasn't, so you decided to take it upon yourself and start it.
I couldn't find anything to sort of say, who's moaning about this and who do I talk to? So I was like, well, if there isn't one, I'll make one. So yeah, it's to sort of support each other. I've got a real good group of real life property friends now. So when I first came into the journey 6 months ago, I was shitting myself. I'd never slept away from home. I went to Peterborough, I was full of anxiety. Oh, it was awful. And I was just like, what am I doing? And I thought, I need to get out of my comfort zone. And if I'm going to do it, I need to be consistent. And I just take someone everywhere with me all the time. I thought, get on with it, you idiot, and go and do it. And I've met such, honestly, like genuinely best mates through property that support each other day in, day out, moan to them all day, every day. We're in like accountability groups together. And then I'll see like someone in a social media platform going, oh God, has anyone experienced this? Or can you help me with that? And then when you actually speak to them, they've not reached out to anyone in months. And you think, how are you doing this alone? So it's more to say, come and join us and don't feel alone in this journey, because it is hard, bloody hard. No one talks about it really.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons why I started this is, you know, I used to listen to podcasts and just learning about property, listening to what other people are doing, you know, gaining tips. Mine was more about obviously the personal development side of things. But yeah, the reason I started this is to give back, and that's exactly what you're doing. But you seem to have a track record of starting things up when there isn't something that you want to do. So you know where I'm going with this. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
PPN Humberside.
Yeah. So again, I'm either really awful at research, not doing my own due diligence, or thinking, oh, I'll give it a bash. So yeah, I started PPN Humberside because I thought, so basically it was based on what's my biggest weakness. And all you hear is get out your own way, get out your comfort zone and sort of smash life and be consistent. So I thought, what's going to make me uncomfortable? What's going to make me get out of my own way? And what's my biggest weakness? And I thought it was raising investor finance is going to be mine. So I thought, why not create a group where people will come to me? And I'm lazy as well. So people will come to me. And then I thought strategically, I'm going to do it in Barton again, because I'm pretty lazy. But 2, it's going to bring Hull and Lincolnshire together. So if you live on the South Bank, you'll know no one in Barton and surrounding areas can be asked to go to Hull. They just don't do it. People in Hull, I don't think I've ever even been on the South Bank. So like, ooh, what's that bloody place over there? So I did it on purpose to bring people together because there's a lot of good stuff in Hull and Yorkshire. There's a lot of good stuff in Lincolnshire, and I'm trying to bring it together. So that was really the purpose of doing it. And also because, yeah, I wanted some friends in property.
Now, it's interesting that you're bridging the gap. Like I say, I primarily focus on Hull, but bringing together people from the North Bank and the South Bank, and there's probably lots of things that they have in common. Building up the relationships. I know some people from the South Bank, and I get inquiries for the South Bank. So building up that network is definitely beneficial as well. You have some fantastic speakers on. So you had on the recent one, Luke Brinley and Paul Tinker. I was actually speaking to Luke the other day.
Yeah.
He's offered to come on the podcast as well, so that'd be really interesting.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
awesome.
I couldn't make the one on Thursday. But
Terrible.
yeah, I know. I do apologise, but no, it's quite refreshing. So I've obviously been to there's some other networking events in Hull. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not as good. It might be a lower turnout, but I think having it in the South Bank, you're getting more people from around the country, and it's not too far. You've got other ones around. You've got places like Leeds, but it's always good to branch out, I think, and go to other networks. So, for people who might want to travel up to this end of the country, when is it? When do you hold it? How can people get on there?
I'm not good at this side of things, but I had mince pies last time, if that helps.
Mince pies and biscuits sold.
Well, do you know what I've learned from holding this PPN? And I will be professional. I'm never professional. I'm lying to you. Individually wrapped chocolates get eaten a lot faster than biscuits, if you needed to know that. And that's what I've learned from PPN Humberside. But it's on the 4th Thursday of every month, 6:30 registration. And I try and get speakers that will add value to whoever's there, basically. So even if you're, I don't know, a builder, you'll still get value from the speakers because I'm trying to, make sure it's valuable for everybody. And also, I've had quite a lot of people from quite a lot of areas. So Leeds, Rotherham, Doncaster, Wolverhampton was a big surprise when someone showed up from there. Birmingham, Staffordshire, Lincoln, Hull. So I was like, oh, no one in Barton can be bothered to go. Let you know. But people are traveling a couple of
because
hours
they know you.
so
that's
it's even
why.
Nicer to network. Yeah, they're like, oh God, what's this bloody thing in Barton? It's open after 6:30. What's going on?
I know, but like I say, I didn't know the first one. I was the first one that was on, to be honest. But the second one, I went there. It was, I can't remember his name. The guy who was an estate agent for a number of years gave a lot of value about the relationships. That was it. Yeah, relationships with agents, and I'm finding more so that they are important. I never used to think I'd build any sort of network or build any sort of relationship through an agent, but there's now agents I work with who bring investors and pay not way above the odds. That's the wrong term. They offer and are happy to spend more on a property because they see the long-term value than people who have been on training. So it makes my job easier as a sourcer. They're still achieving what they want as the net ROI, but agents are, and they're the biggest lead generators for properties in the area primarily, aren't they? Because people, when you want to sell your house, you don't think I'm going to go to a property sourcer. You think I'm going to go to an estate agent.
Well, you do, and it's surprising because I've made a relationship with quite a lot of agents, and I get a lot of off-market properties through this estate agent, and it's an easy, brilliant relationship. Another one, just was trying to suss each other out really because they have off-market stuff, but then they're selling it, and then it's a bit strange. So you've kind of got to suss out the agents that one you'll work best with, but ultimately a shared vision. So there's one particular estate agent that's absolutely brilliant. She works across the South Bank and the North Bank, and she'll just ring me now and go, right, I've got a property with your criteria. Do you want to see it first? Yes, I bloody do. Do you know what I mean? So had I not built that relationship up, I wouldn't have a clue about it. So yeah, find one that you share values with. Ultimately, they want to sell properties or let them out. Ultimately, I want to get them. So yeah, you've got to build them up.
Yeah, and I guess don't go to the corporates as well. I'm not saying that they don't have the properties. They might do, but if you think about it, at the end of the day, there's a bloke who's been an estate agent for 40 years. He's an independent. The money he makes from selling properties are feeding his kids or his grandkids or whatever. So if you can act fast, support them in their growth, see their vision and support them, then they're obviously going to come to you straight away. As long as you can take action and make sure that the properties you're either buying them or passing them on or sourcing them on, then it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. I'm really honest as well. Like I just look everything I do. I'm a bit too honest, probably sometimes a bit too blunt. But actually, it's worked out better for me because you don't piss anyone about. So like, there's a property. The deal didn't stack up for me. Basically, there was too much money left in, and I couldn't raise the finance on it. But I'm working with another investor to buy it, and then I'll buy it off him in 5 years. So I'm going to do rent to SA on it. That's the dream. The estate agent knew that the whole time. I was really honest with her. So it doesn't come as a surprise when I go, I've got an offer. And then she then takes me seriously because she understands the offer. If I'd have gone in there, lost the deal, she'd have thought I was an idiot. So you've got to I'm really transparent with people because it is all about relationships at the end of the day. You've got to help each other out.
Yeah, definitely. And estate agents, they work in property, but, and, it might be completely different. I'm not generalizing. So for any agents out there, I'm not generalizing or stereotyping whatsoever. But a lot of agents aren't aware of everything that goes on in the property investing world, the strategy wise, so when you go up to them and you're talking about, I want to rent it for this amount of time and buy it, or you're not transparent and you put a really low offer in and you're not explaining why, etc., then, that's probably, they're not going to take you seriously, and you probably sort of hinder your relationship before it starts. It's, like you say, it's about, I don't believe in taking donuts into agents or anything like that. I think that's a load of bollocks, if I'm perfectly honest. Yeah, they'll enjoy them, but that doesn't win relationships in my eyes. So yeah, it's just,
you just think, what are you doing, you smoozy dickhead, coming in here with your donuts? What are you after? That's what I think.
Exactly. I'd be like, nice one, thanks. Piss off, go on. I've got someone who's going to buy the property. He's not spending £3 on Krispy Kremes, but is what it is.
Where you getting them from?
Yeah,
exactly. But
it's like this in Hull. You can get Krispy Kreme.
Oh, they've just got one in Barton. I was like, yes, thank God. It's annoyed all the residents apart from me. I was well excited. But as well, I taught an estate agent something about regulated tenancies. Now, I don't know if anyone has even come across regulated tenancies. And I don't know why I was expecting a response then, because actually no one's listening yet. But regulated tenancies are very historic tenancies before 1989. And basically the lifelong tenancies, very difficult to evict anyone in that. You can't really. And a lot of them are coming up at auctions now because you can't get rid of the tenants. And the rent is basically below market rent by a long way. And they've got a lot more rights and stuff. And this estate agent didn't have a bloody clue about them. And I was like, oh, here's some info. Enjoy. So actually, if you can offer them a bit of advice, whatever it is as well, you're a long way to building the relationship up further.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think you learn a lot from agents as well. And I was having this conversation with one the other day. So there was a portfolio we were selling, or a number of properties. One a full portfolio, there's a few, but he had an investor interested. And the fact was, I was selling, you can get multiple dwelling stamp duty relief, which not many people actually know about. So if you buy, I can't remember whether it's 3 or more, you don't actually pay the full stamp duty per property. There's a formula to work out what you pay. It's 1% of X or.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's clever.
Yeah. So, I was talking about him and the fact that his investor could offer more money because he's saving X amount on the stamp duty. But yeah, if you go on the stamp duty on the website, gov.uk, whatever sort of links you go through for stamp duty, there's a lot of exemptions that people don't know about. So on some of the properties I just bought, obviously less than 40k, fine, but I also didn't pay stamp duty on some of the other ones because they were uninhabitable. So you actually pay the stamp and then you just get a refund, you get it back. There's probably someone from HMRC listening to me. I'm going to fucking check that, make sure he's not bullshitting us. But,
I'm going to find you.
Yeah, exactly. But genuinely, there are a number of exemptions out there that, and it's knowledge power, isn't it? It's having that knowledge, and he was really fascinated by that point. And as well as that, what did he tell me? He told me something the other day that related to the letting side of my business, which was really fascinating. And it's about having that sort of relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got onto talking about agents so much when this was more to talk about the social care sector.
I told you I digress a lot, to be fair. I'm like this anyway.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's all good content.
Yeah, as long as it's valuable. There was the little newbie tip as well. I was going to give a little newbie tip because so at the PPN, run Clubhouse, got some accountability group. I just speak to people constantly, basically. And a lot of it was about where am I going with this? This is always happens to me. But yeah, it's about obviously relationship building and getting out there basically. Because a lot of people don't like live videos, they don't like putting content out, they don't like going on social media, and they don't tell anyone about what they actually do in bloody property. And since I've started speaking and openly saying, look, I do this, this is what I do as a job, but also as a business, it opens the doors for so many other things. So for example, and I'll tell you a really long-winded version of where I'm coming from. So I did a live video. Someone watched it. They've been watching my lives. Reached out to me, want a JV with you. I was like, oh, cool, nice one, it's working. That opened the door to work with someone else local that is under the radar. So now we've got like a 3-way partnership. I've got a JV with a property I sourced doing some refurb on. So I reached out to this person, said, I need a builder in Hull. Can you get me one? Yes, I can. He got me a builder, spoke to the builder for 20 minutes tonight, is getting an 11 portfolio. What am I on about? 11 properties in a portfolio on one street in Newcastle. That's worth 1.1 million. Would I be interested in taking them? What the fuck? Do you know what I mean? And that's how relationships work and your network expands. That's from one live video. So what I'd say to newbies is bloody get out there and tell people what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And, you know, the cliche saying your network is your net worth. I truly believe that relationships are the most important thing. And when I've done the mentorship in the past, when I, you know, go to networking events, the people you meet, you never know who is watching. I received a call today as well. You know, someone actually rang me who recruited me for one of my full-time positions before, and said, look, I've been watching what you're doing, you know, told me about circumstances, which just opened the door for opportunity just from putting posts on social media. You know, like you say, there is a lot of people sort of fluff it up. They don't always tell about the challenges. You know, I like to say about the challenges. You know, if I do a refinance in a few weeks and it's really downvalued, I'll get on the podcast and say about it, because it's what's happening. You know, it's what's going on. You know, not everything is perfect, and, you know, people wearing rose tinted glasses all the time. It's not always perfect. So I think people do need to know the shit side of it. I say the shit side of it, the challenges.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, I wouldn't say it's a shit side, but there are challenges, and it is important. But yeah, get out there, whether you're posting, speak to people. You know, for example, for yourself, you know, I can obviously tell how much value you like giving. You enjoy what you do. So what, you know, would you be open for people to just reaching out to you, just saying, look, you know, I'm really interested about this sector. How can I help it? I'm passionate, you know, blah, blah, blah. Is it something that, you know, you probably don't want 100 people messaging you a day, but, you know.
Would it be awkward if I went, no, actually, just leave me alone? I just want my... So yeah,
I'll probably cut the edit.
A lot of people message me anyway. Yeah, a lot of people message me anyway because like I've done a post or whatever. But yeah, definitely. Because if they message me and I can help them fundamentally to change the sector, that's the dream, isn't it? I don't want to see homeless people on the street or in B&Bs or in shitty accommodation. So yeah, if that will help in the long term, bloody hell, message me. Yeah,
it's the law of reciprocity as well, isn't it? You might give some value to or some information to someone now, and in the future that might come back and help you significantly, especially in the sector, and help, you know, you achieve what you want to do. So what, you know, where can people find you then if they do want to reach out? And I'll put your information in the show notes, but just for the benefit of people listening. So
where can you find me? I'm best on WhatsApp if you've got the pleasure of having my number. If not, if you're on Facebook, I'm Heidi Louise, because I like to operate on a different name. I'm on Clubhouse. I'm in the progressive group. I'm in there a lot. If I am local to you, I'll be at Greg's probably. Yeah, or some sort of eatery. So yeah, Heidi Louise Facebook is probably the best. Then I'll give you my WhatsApp.
Oh, brilliant. And every 4th Thursday you'll be at Barton PPN. If you've got that. Yeah, apart from December, because it falls between Christmas and New Year and everyone will be eating cheese. So it's not on in December. But the next one in January is a social housing special, if you're interested. This episode will definitely be out there. So what I'll do is I'll also put a link in maybe to the PPN site where people can go on, check the Humberside one. You also have a Facebook page as well. It might be worth people liking that as well. People, see all this information.
I'm not a tech person. And I'm not good at tech, so
yeah, but it's definitely good.
or advertising.
Is a definitely good event. Like I said, I've been to went to the one, couldn't make last one, but I'll be definitely going to the January one. I'm sure you probably get a lot of people with their New Year's resolutions, but you know, it is fantastic. The speakers are fantastic. And yeah, pleasure you coming on. It's really interesting to know about the social housing sector, because it is more prevalent nowadays. But this is probably the one that, in my opinion, probably gets left on the wayside, because not many people know too much about it, what funding's available. So yeah, if it is interesting,
Exactly.
where can people go other than yourself to find out a bit more information? Would you say the local authority and speak to your council?
Yeah, your local authority, number one, absolutely fundamental. Your homeless teams or your housing options teams at the council. But if not, look in your area for registered housing providers, whether they are community interest companies, so CIC charities. Reach out to them as well, because their model basically operates on leasing accommodation of private landlords. So yeah, fundamentally, they rely on the private sector heavily as well, because not many charities can afford to buy their own properties, and they don't, and there's no funding really for that. So yeah, reach out to any housing providers in your areas as well. See if they need accommodation.
Amazing. Well, thanks very much for coming on, Heidi. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's okay. Thank you for having me, and I hope I haven't bored you too much.
No, you definitely haven't. Lots of value given there. Thank you.